and welcome to a brand new episode of the Five Heart Podcast, brought to you by Coordination, part of the SB Nation Podcast Network. I am your host, Greg Bahanchko. Joining me, as always, one of the co-hosts of the Five Heart Podcast. He is our founder and fearless leader at Coordination.com, John Dam Johnston. Hello, John.
How are you doing, Greg? It's great to be here.
I'm doing good. That's right. All those other cliches.
I got my second COVID vaccination today at 3:00.
Okay, so without knowing which exact pharmaceutical company provided your vaccine, I can tell you what my wife and others that I've spoken with have experienced after receiving their second shot. My wife got hers on a Tuesday. When I came on, showered, shaved, and dressed and ready for work on Wednesday morning. Of course, my wife at the time, 32 weeks pregnant, so she's pretty much at home on a modified bed rest. She's on the couch. I'm cold. I walked downstairs and it's cold. I said, honey, can I turn the heat up, fireplace, get you a blanket? She's like, no. She said, don't change anything. Don't make it hotter. Don't make it colder. I'm comfortable the way it is. I said, okay. Went to work. Called her a few hours later around lunchtime, and I could hear her shivering all over the phone. And she said, I'm going up. I'm getting blankets. I'm getting sweatshirts. I cannot get warm. So that's what one of the side effects, I don't know if it's side effect or if it's an like proof that it's working, is that, you know, you're hot and you're cold and you're hot and you're cold. By Thursday morning, she was fine. So I just want to prepare you for your Friday. It might be a long day, John.
Well, I was hoping for some side effects. I was hoping that, for example, I'd grow another arm, Greg. You know why?
Yeah, it's going to make using the shower at the gym that much more enjoyable. I don't know.
Well, I was thinking that I could just jack off all day and still get as much work done.
And you can too with Blue Chew.
I was hoping for, that maybe I would get enlarged in some areas better than I am. Because that's always a concern for elder males, no matter who they are.
Speaking of elder males, joining us once again.
Either that or laser shooting right out of my eyeballs. I would kind of be able to turn them off and on.
Todd Wolverton, welcome back. You never know exactly where this thing's going to go before we introduce you, do you, Todd?
No, it's always interesting, and I'm trying to get comfortable with this references the elder Todd, but I am. I mean, it's something I've got to accept. I'm older than John, for God's sakes. So, but anyway, it's good to be here tonight, Greg. I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you guys, and it's good to see that John didn't grow breasts with that second COVID shot. I could entertain myself. Well, I was wondering what you might do with those if you had them. So
there is a pandemic, and all I do is pretty much sit at home and work on computers in this same freaking room. Now it is, you know what it is right now? It's -6. When I think we got up this morning, it was like -38 or some freaking thing. I want to go out and do some YouTube videos, and my problem is that I don't think my camera will function in this weather for very long, even with the battery packs and boosts and all that shit. But growing breasts, there's some heart medicine you can take that's a side effect for, but I haven't moved to that one.
Let's move on, Greg.
All right, third arms and breasts. You never know what to expect here on the Five Heart Podcast.
I could sell tickets.
But would anybody buy one?
Oh, God, yes, they would. I'd have my own Netflix special in like 3 weeks. I could build that up and do that. He said move on, and you're supposed to just take control, Greg.
You side railed the where I thought I don't know exactly where. All right, let's start here. Okay. Let's get it. Let's jump in. a topic that Todd loves to talk about, and we love it when Todd talks about wrestling.
Oh, I thought it was
fantastic episode a couple weeks ago. Well, he's wearing Husker red, not commie red. But it was a great episode a couple weeks ago with Todd and John and Dylan talking about Husker wrestling. And, there's a reason that Iowa is one of the premier wrestling programs in the nation. But, boy, those Huskers, they pitched a shutout against Northwestern here not too long ago, Todd.
Yeah, just a couple things real quick. Last time out, Nebraska just looked outstanding. I mean, they truly did. And, hopefully they keep the momentum going into, the rest of the season. Now they're off this weekend, and Dylan made a good point. The Iowa-Penn State duel is being postponed because Iowa's whole wrestling program is under COVID right now. So that left Penn State without a match this week, and Nebraska was open. So, I'm sitting here wondering, why weren't the ADs on the phone? Why is that match not happening somewhere this weekend? Dylan made a good point on that show a couple weeks ago. Outside of Iowa, Nebraska, unfortunately, isn't wrestling any of the other teams in the upper echelon of the Big Ten Conference, which is going to hurt them for seeds when they get down to the Big Ten Conference. And, that really stinks. And this would have been a chance, at least, for Nebraska to run up against one of the upper tier teams like they are, and maybe get some wins that would help them with seeds in the tournament. The other thing that just came out in the last couple of days is that Eric Schultz at 197 pounds is now the number one ranked wrestler at his weight class in the country. So the first time that Nebraska has had a number one ranked wrestler for quite a few years. I didn't go back and check when the last one was, but he's been consistent the last couple of years. Certainly, he'd been number two ranked throughout this season, even though we're about halfway through. But the top seed from West Virginia got knocked off, I think, by the wrestler from Virginia Tech in their duel. I might be wrong on that. He got beat. So that moved Schultz into the upper spot. So Nebraska wrestling has a week off, and I think something else that Dylan mentioned in his article on Corn Nation that I thought was an interesting point too for those people that are paying attention to it. In that last duel last weekend with Indiana and then the duel with Michigan State, Ridge Lovett bumped up to 149 pounds and wrestled one of the duels. And so he wrestled the duel against Michigan State, and Hardy wrestled the duel against Indiana. And Dylan's hypothesizing that, since Lovett won convincingly, that might be a place for him to break into the lineup. Now, for those of you that haven't paid that close attention, Ridge Lovett had a great freshman season last year at 133. But he's grown. He's too big to make that weight class. But at 141, he's behind Chad Redd. So they gave him a shot at 149. So that's yet to be seen. But Ridge Lovett's a really exciting wrestler. Personally, I think he's too small. Even though he's too big for 133, I don't think he's big enough to compete at 149, which is a really tough weight.
Does it really make that big a difference?
Yeah, it does.
Is that just muscle weight or what?
A lot of it's muscle weight, and a lot of it has to do with your body makeup, your body size. And there's a lot of difference in terms of, how 149-pounders are put together compared to 133-pounders. 149-pounders tend to be a little bit longer and lankier, and that's a lot of leverage, and it's a little bit different style of wrestling than it is. Now, Ridge Lovett is pretty lanky for a 133, former 133-pounder. But, yeah, you got to factor it this way, John. Those, 149-pounders in the off-season, they're probably more like 170 pounds, 175 pounds. So those pretty good sized guys, that are dropping that weight. So it does make a difference. Now, I won't get into it that much, but there's some historical stories about smaller guys moving up, and being able to compete. And right now, there's some pretty solid guys in the sport that think Spencer Lee, who's ranked number one at 125, they believe he could be an All-American at 149, which is 3 weight classes up. He's that good. But who knows? That'll never happen. But anyway, it's good to see Nebraska where they're at right now. I think they're ranked 6th, which that's fine. When the fur starts to fly in March at the tournaments, we'll see where they end up. So,
what's next, Greg?
I was going to have a follow up for Todd about wrestling. If that's all right, John.
Okay.
Since Big Ten wrestling is only Big Ten wrestling, and they're the best conference for wrestling, but you also miss out on the Oklahoma States and the Iowa States, and some of the better talent that's at smaller schools. And like you said, with Nebraska, not necessarily getting, potentially a Penn State duel, and not getting some of the higher tier programs. Just how big of a loss? Kind of. I mean, I know they're trying to patchwork their way through, but how big of a loss is it to the season to not have some of these guys going up against at some of these larger tournaments or weekend long like dual meets and things like that?
I think it's a big deal because Nebraska typically has wrestled. I won't tell you that they've wrestled the toughest non-conference schedule, but generally speaking, they've gone to Las Vegas or they've gone to the Midlands, a tournament where they have gone against good, strong competition. And, it's not unusual for them to take on Oklahoma State in a duel. And they've wrestled, out on the East Coast against North Carolina State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. I mean, they'll compete against some of those other top teams. But I really think it's going to be a real crapshoot because in the last few years, last 10 to 15 years, it seems like there's kind of been a shift towards the East a little bit, and primarily because of Penn State's dominance for a number of years. And so there's a lot more focus and attention, it seems like, on some of the Eastern schools than there have been on the Midwestern schools. Now, there are Big Ten schools in the East, too. I'm a little bit fearful that when it comes time to seed the national tournament, that some of the Big Ten guys will not get a seed that is reflective of where they should be. But that being said, every year, you look at the way they seed that tournament and you just got to scratch your head and say, are you kidding me? This guy was runner up in the Big Ten tournament and you seeded him 7th in the national tournament. That makes no sense. But I am concerned this year because it seems like a lot of attention has been given to Virginia Tech. A lot of attention's been given to North Carolina State and Oklahoma State. So I think this is going to get messy, especially, think of it this way. If Iowa, let's hypothesize that this COVID thing goes on for a few more weeks. Iowa wrestlers go into the Big Ten tournament with maybe 5 or 6 matches, 5 or 6 wins. And how is that going to impact their seeds at the national level when other teams are going to have more wins? I mean, there's wrestlers in the Big 12 conference that have wrestled 13, 14 matches this year right now. And there's not a Big Ten guy that's wrestled more than 6 or 7. So, Dabo Sweeney, they'll pull a Dabo on us.
Does anybody have that much pull?
Well, generally speaking, the seating committee is pretty representative of the nation. And it just gets messy. I'll just leave it that way.
What are you listening to, John?
I'm not. I don't know where that's coming from.
That would be the grandfather clock next to me.
Oh, okay. Well, that's right. You can. Todd's in a different room because it's nighttime there, and usually when we record for Todd, it's daytime. So that makes sense. He's in a different part of the house or the stadium, however you want to look at it. Does Iowa have enough pull to be able to shuffle things around in a similar way to, and maybe not necessarily at the Big Ten level, but at the national level in the seeding, but in a similar way to how the rules were skirted to get Ohio State into the Big Ten championship game. I mean, is there and I'll say I'll pick on the Big Ten. We picked on them quite a bit last week as well. By the way, we got some interesting comments on YouTube for us not only standing up for Nebraska, but standing up for all member schools of the Big Ten when we were saying that the Big Ten failed in implementing a plan for the football season. But somebody in the comments took umbrage or said, "Hey, thanks for watching, you fuck." Is Iowa strong enough in wrestling like Ohio State was in football, where they'll look past the perhaps lack of activity?
I guess they might from the perspective of getting a seed, but if this COVID thing drags on, I don't think that. I mean, I don't think the Big Ten will make an allowance. I think the Big Ten made the only allowance they're going to make, and that was with Ohio State for football. Unless they make it for a basketball program, so if I don't even know, is Wisconsin at the top of the league standings? If Wisconsin gets hit with a COVID outbreak, or whoever the top men's basketball team is towards the end of the season, will the Big Ten step in and say, you know what, instead of whatever it is, 17 days or whatever it is, we'll shorten it up if everybody tests negative. I don't even know what the procedures are. But
well, that may come up.
It may come up.
No, I mean it with Michigan. Michigan's basketball program has been out 2 weeks now.
Well, their whole sports.
Michigan's 8-1, 8-1 in the conference, 13-1 overall. I mean, they don't have the most games, they don't have the most conference wins, but they do have the best win percentage. Ohio State's 10-4, Wisconsin's 9-5, Illinois is 9-3.
Right.
Yeah. So
I mean, according to
right now is, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just, according to the rankings, right now they have Michigan, Illinois, Ohio State, then Wisconsin, then Iowa. So
I would,
all the way at the bottom.
But with the Big Ten's love affair with basketball, they probably, if there was something that happened where the Big Ten needed to make an exception to the rules that they set in order for a basketball team to benefit and move forward in the tournament. Yeah, I could see the Big Ten doing it. Would they do the same for wrestling? I doubt it. Would they do the same thing for volleyball? I doubt it. I think it's football and basketball, and I think the Big Ten's true colors have come through. I know that there are people out there that say, well, duh, football and basketball pay the bills. Well, I get it. But, there's other sports in this conference that where the Big Ten competes at an incredibly high level, volleyball and wrestling being two of them. But I think the powers that be in the conference office just kind of looks down their nose at all. I mean, we don't even have a baseball schedule yet. They released a softball schedule earlier this week, which I think is a very good schedule. And I mean, we can talk about that later, but no baseball schedule yet. And what are we, 15 days away from what is alleged to be, the first date that they can play? I mean, for crying out loud, that's deplorable.
Yeah, our basketball program is going to play 7 games in 12 days. All right. Did you watch the last game against Wisconsin?
I did not watch it.
Okay, we started that game with this lineup: Banton, McGowan, Walker, Allen, and Mann. That's our starting lineup. I'm not a great basketball guy, but I've been watching basketball because I'm interested to see what happens. But that's pretty much our starting lineup right there. And they went out against Wisconsin, and they were on fire early in that game until Fred Hoiberg mixed up the players, right? He took players out of the lineup. Okay, now you hear me say that, you might go, well, why'd he take him out? Well, because he's got to play 7 fucking games in 12 days. You can't just take 4 or 5 guys and leave them on the floor for the entire game and expect them to be able to play all these games in that short a period of time. But, I mean, we did this last week where we kind of looked at the Big Ten and went, what the fuck is this? And there's a lot of people out there that, I tweet about basketball and I do the game thread thing about basketball. There's a lot of people out there, I suppose, that are looking at Hoiberg's program and go, well, we're not going to win a game and this isn't progress. And that, okay, do you understand the fucking situation at all? We missed 27 days worth of basketball. And the moment we come back, we're asked, with guys who haven't been able to practice, haven't been able to do anything, we're asked to play a whole shitload of games in a really short time. So the Big Ten,
if I remember correctly,
apparently keep their RPIs intact, keep their numbers up, and potentially leave room in schedules so that when Michigan, who's going to be a postseason team, get into the NCAA tournament, so that there's room for them to schedule more games too if they need to later. So shitty Nebraska basketball has to mash all their games together. When you say it's their true colors, the next time some Big Ten mucky muck says bullshit about the student athlete safety and we're for the student athletes, you got to look at them and go, fuck you. Just fuck off with that shit. And the problem is they're not going to be called on it by anybody because most of the people that run at that level run around with the same people they are. They spew the same bullshit lines and they all believe the same bullshit because if Frank over there spews bullshit, I'm going to back Frank up and he's going to back me up when I spew my bullshit. The press, the media guys aren't going to take these guys on because if they do, they just won't be allowed to do any Big Ten events. So, fuck you, Big Ten people in charge. There you go. I feel better.
I'm not much of a basketball aficionado. I'm a Fred Hoiberg fan. I have been since he was a high school athlete. Had opportunity to watch him play football. Could watch him pitch his last baseball game, and of course, I have some Iowa State tendencies. But I heard some guys talking on Sports Talk that makes a lot of sense to me. Whoever would have thought that we would have seen a season where the Blue Bloods, Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky, Kansas, are all struggling. I mean, I think 3 of those teams are not even ranked in the top 20 or whatever. And,
I thought that
go ahead.
There was a possibility that all 4 of them could be out of the top 25. At the same time.
And maybe that's what it is. I think that maybe I did read that, but somebody, in this one conversation between a couple of basketball guys makes a lot of sense, and it applies to Nebraska. Calipari is probably the best example, but Krzyzewski does the same thing at Duke to an extent, and Kansas does as well, where they bring in all these very high-rated, 5-star athletes, knowing full well that 1, 2, 3, maybe even in Kentucky's case, 5 of them are going to be there for 1 year and then go pro. I mean, they've kind of mastered that one and done mentality. That's what they've recruited for this year, but they're all struggling. And it was pointed out that, because of COVID, none of those programs were able to get those high-powered players on campus early. They had no preseason strength and conditioning programs for them. They didn't have a chance at all when they could really just focus on basketball to build any kind of cohesion, any kind of culture, any kind of teamwork, any of that kind of stuff. They lost it all. It wasn't there. And so you can't just win because you've got the best athletes out there. You have to have the best team on the floor. And those programs are suffering because they missed all of that time to build a team. Okay, apply that to Nebraska. Hoiberg pretty much rebuilt the entire team this year. And he was in the same circumstances as those elite programs, but not with anywhere close to the athletes. And then we get COVID, and that's just more lost time.
Yeah.
You know, this more than the football season. This ought to be a throwaway. Of course, Coach Hoiberg doesn't look at it that way, but get through this damn thing and put your focus on next year.
I think Banton is a freak job of an athlete. As a 6'9" point guard. I mean, he's just a weird guy, you know. And Derek Walker is such an upgrade at that position over what we've had. You know, I like Ivan Uedrago, fuck up that name, but he has not really progressed that far as a big guy. And Walker is really. I like watching Walker. He looks smooth. What's the younger kid's name? Andre? Have you guys haven't watched? He looks so raw, but he looks like he has so much massive amounts of athletic talent that he's going to be interesting to watch him develop over the next year or two. And then McGowan, that guy, for him, I want him to become Brad Davison in Nebraska. I want that fucking guy to be the guy that every other team hates his guts because of the way that he does his soccer flopping, throws his arms in the air. He does that stop thing when he's dribbling the ball down the court with a guy behind him. Fuck all those other basketball schools. I want to irritate the shit out of them. Because Brad Davison got called for a foul and he whined about it after he lifted his elbow up and smacked Teddy Allen in the face just a little bit when he was trying to post up. Whatever, dickhead, shithead. Aren't you supposed to be like on with your life and married and have like 10 or 12-year-old kids by now? I'm looking forward to us having 2 McGowans so that we can draw like 300 fouls a game against teams. That's what I'm looking forward to. So I still think there's a lot of fun in the basketball team, even though we're probably not going to win a game this year. We're certainly not when we get drilled into the ground. Okay, Greg.
I want to touch on that Todd talked about the Blue Bloods, and I think, Todd, you're exactly right about how their philosophy is the best basketball players or athletes that you can, get them that year of prep, a year of play, and then ship them off to the NBA. And like you said, in a COVID era, it's not working out. However, unfortunately, it's my belief that after COVID, I mean, they won't have learned their lesson. They'll just go back to the old ways, and start printing checks, writing checks to these guys, and sending them off to the next level.
Probably.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I know we talked about how deplorable it was that there's no baseball schedule in place yet. Was there any more that we had? Because I know that you talked about the softball schedule before we started rolling sound, Todd, and said that it was actually a little exciting to have a little something fresh to look forward to.
Well, I think they did a good job, and then I know that Coach Revelle was on the committee that helped design the schedule. And what they're doing, it's really pretty cool. I think the first weekend's March 12th. All of the Big Ten teams are going to be in Florida, north of Orlando, the Sleepy Hollow Sports Club or something like that. But they're all going to be down there. And on that first weekend, Nebraska's going to play, all the teams down there, they're going to play 6 games. They're going to play doubleheaders against 3 conference opponents. So Nebraska, whoever those 3 teams are that they're going to play 2 games against each of those teams. And then they're going to have a weekend off, I suppose, in case somebody gets COVID. And then they're going to go back the following weekend to the same spot. And Nebraska will play 3 games against 2 of the teams. And I know that one of those teams is Michigan. I always keep my eye on Michigan because they're just an incredible program, and she is an amazing coach up there, and just love watching her team play. But so they're going to play against 2 teams. They're going to play 3 games, and then the rest of the season they will play a 4-game series against all of the rest of the Big Ten teams. They got 4 dates at home and 4 dates on the road. So it all sounds like a pretty good deal. And the issue, in springtime you got rain and you got rainouts. So it doesn't sound like there'll be an opportunity to make up games if they lose some. But they got a 44-game schedule, and in the case of softball, there's nothing wrong with the quality of softball that they play in the Big Ten Conference. No, it's not the SEC and it's not the Pac-12, but the Big Ten Conference is generally well represented in the postseason, and they'll be fine. But I think it's pretty cool that they are going to go down to Florida so that they can get some games in good weather, so they can get some practice in outside. I wouldn't be shocked if teams aren't down there. If they only have to be there for 3 days for games, it would shock me if they're not down there for more than that.
Can they do that for baseball?
Well, that's the big mystery. The rumor has it, and it's only rumor, that they are trying to secure some spring training sites down somewhere. I don't know if they're talking Florida or Arizona, but they're trying to secure some spring training sites. And so, they'll send like a certain number of teams to Vero Beach, a certain number of teams to Tampa, a certain number of teams to wherever, and play kind of a round robin type of a Jupiter, play kind of a round robin situation there. But, again, nothing's come from that, and nothing's shown up. All I can tell you this is, if they're planning to start baseball on March 12th, on the same weekend that they're starting softball, there's no way other than up in Minnesota, there is no way they can play home and away baseball games up here. They just can't. So they got to figure out some way to get them down south.
How would using the spring training facilities work when Major League Baseball is going to be having players reporting here in the near future?
Well,
fuck them. Fuck Major League Baseball. They don't get a report.
They're arguing right now about pushing spring training later. I think it's the owners that want to move it later. So the possibility might exist that they're not there. But otherwise, when Coach Erstead, was leading the program here, they always went down to Arizona and played at the Angels facilities. There's more than one field at those facilities. And, I don't know. Maybe that's what's hanging up. Maybe that's the hang up with the schedule. Maybe they're struggling to find places. But, sure as hell, there's a lot of teams down in Texas, Arizona, Southern California, Florida, Louisiana, Mississippi. They can find ball fields if they just put their mind to it.
Here, the football team had a disappointing season, and football was a complete fucking mess. And I'm not just talking about Nebraska. I'm talking about Big Ten football. It was a mess. It was a complete mess. Big Ten basketball rolls around. We got a whole bunch of new players, and it was excited to see them. And then that all got blown to shit. And now they're cramming our basketball team into a position where they're going to be running to the ground, and they're not going to win a game because they won't have the ability to do that anyway, even if they got better. So having a baseball season, for me personally, John Johnston, Husker fucking fan extraordinaire, is kind of a big deal because I want to. Our baseball team might be good. We might have pitching staff that can kick some ass. We might have an offense that can kick some ass. We might be able to win the Big Ten. I'd kind of like to see a men's team at Nebraska, and I know wrestling is decent, do well in a sport that I want to watch and be part of. And what is in my way? Apparently the Big Ten Conference. Where do I have to drive? Whose door do I have to fucking knock on? to get this shit going.
I think it sounds like you need to take a trip to Chicago.
Motherfuckers. Trip to Chicago. I'm vaccinated now. I'll be all like, my breasts are going to Chicago, and I'm going to go in and say, listen, I got side effects, you motherfuckers. I don't know what I'm going to say after that. Show my third arm flopping around there. Why is it so strong? You don't want to know.
I think you should reach out to Kevin Warren and see if you can arrange a face-to-face interview.
I think I probably should stay low key so I could still go to Big Ten events. Without having be on a no-fly list for the Big Ten. Yeah, there's only one name, and it's some asshole from Nebraska.
A no-fan list.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, John, since you brought up football, let's talk a little bit about football. Now, we don't have any signing day or anything like that
there was
this
a Super
week,
Bowl.
but there was a Super Bowl, and we all picked the Buccaneers, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I think you guys thought it was going to be a close game, and I said it was going to be Tampa Bay by 10, and we were all wrong.
Did you pick the Buccaneers? I thought you hated Tom Brady.
I do, but I also realize that the fix is in, and Tom Brady can do no wrong. So no matter where he's at, just expect championships and pregnant ladies, I guess. I don't know. So the Super Bowl happened, and I alluded to it last week. I can say now, with no shame, guilt, or regret, I don't even know what channel it was on. I never turned it on.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Well, viewership was in the toilet. Worse than game watched since 2007.
Yeah.
I think people are tired of Tom Brady. I really do. And when you can't get together with, a house full of viewers and whatnot, I think it does affect things. Like so our Sunday routine is that, I get up, I go to church, and I stream church, for people to watch at home since, COVID and whatnot. And and my wife texts me the grocery list, and I go to the grocery store, and she said, hey, if you want to get these things, I'll make a dip for today. And I was like, it's Sunday. And I was like, oh, shit, Super Bowl. Then I was like, what? We're not going anywhere. Why would we make so anyway, ended up doing 3 Super Bowl special, dip or, dishes, things like that, a couple different dips and some homemade meatballs. But I was like, I had panic mode. I said, what? It's been so long since I've been to a Super Bowl party that what the hell do you take to a Super Bowl party? So I just started throwing shit in a crock pot and drinking beer at 1:30. So it worked.
Well, we got together. We had a family get together. That was kind of nice, but the game was really not worth a shit. I do have to say that the NFL has actually brought my family together this year more than a lot more than Nebraska football, which is really kind of weird and sad. But, I am thankful that the NFL actually played their games. And even though we had a really shitty Super Bowl that didn't involve the Packers, but it did involve, Levante David and Ndamukong Suh and Khalil Davis get their Super Bowl rings. And then Tom Brady took the Lombardi trophy and threw it across the lake or whatever, a river. And I think I shit my pants watching him do that more than he did.
Yeah.
No respect. He's got no respect for the game. Get him out of here.
I'll tell you what, I watched it, and I'm not a Brady fan either. But, I kind of watched it from the perspective that, he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I'm not going to get into the whole greatest of all time thing. I think that's ridiculous conversation. But, the guy had won 6 Super Bowl rings. He's got 7 now. He's played on winning teams. But I thought it was going to be an interesting game from the perspective of, the quarterback who's considered by many to be the best of his era against Patrick Mahomes, who arguably is the best quarterback of his era. And, it did come down to quarterback play because Mahomes was not that effective. But that wasn't Mahomes' fault. That kid did everything in his power to try to make things work and try to make things happen. That offensive line was decimated with injuries. That Pierre Paul, Shad Barrett, Levant, they were in that backfield more than the running backs were for the Chiefs. And, they had an incredible scheme against Tyreek Hill. They basically took him out of the game. Yep. They apparently were willing to give up some yards to Kelsey. And because he had some decent plays. But what I saw out of Patrick Mahomes was one of the gutsiest, most determined performances in a losing situation, a bad loss that I'd seen. Yeah. I mean, that a couple of those passes, he was falling down and whipped that ball 35 yards. He's falling to his face.
Hit his receiver right in the face, and the guy didn't catch the fucking ball.
Exactly. It just, I don't know. Patrick Mahomes, I've been impressed with his skills. I know a lot of the experts, Jimmy Johnson and some of those people, Andy Reid, obviously, but in a losing effort, it was really, I guess I appreciated the effort that Patrick Mahomes gave in that game.
He looked like at the end of the game that he was the only one playing for the Chiefs. Because he threw so many passes, the guys just fucking dropped. And you're like, you're in the Super Bowl, you assholes. Could you at least make the effort of showing up? Even though you're getting your asses kicked, you candy ass, tiny baby wiener boys.
Well, the Honey Badger showed his true character. They messed with him. He took himself mentally out of that game about 5 minutes before halftime, and they didn't have his leadership the rest of the game.
Well, Anton Winfield got his personal foul penalty. I thought it was a little bit much at the time, but now I think it's kind of funny.
That was kind of a funny gesture. Of course, you got to respect Tyreek Hill for how explosive he is, but he's definitely at the rock bottom as far as a human being, and so I don't want to see anything good happen for that guy.
What do we got? Wait, you said something about Nebraska football, Greg.
I did. And congratulations again to Ndamukong Suh, Levante David, who I've been on record on the show saying probably my favorite defensive Husker of all time. And of course, in his rookie year, getting Super Bowl rings that they deserve. And we'll leave it as far as Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're the only ones who deserve them. Let's talk about a future pro. This was one of those topics that we debated, the three of us even bringing up. But it's important to discuss because the word is out there. The news is out there. The interview was done. And, we're being joined by a fourth. As soon as he arrived, we welcome Nate McHugh. But the interview done this past week by recent former Nebraska offensive tackle, Brendan Hymas. And I'm just going to turn it over to you, Todd, because I know that you have thoughts.
Well, I didn't read the whole article. I read a squib of it, but I listened to some people talking about the article when I was driving around this afternoon. I'm not a Brendan Hymas fan. I'm of the opinion that he quit on the team at the end of the season. There was one more game to go, and he made the decision that he was no longer going to be a member of the Nebraska football team. He decided that he was going to go his own way and prepare for his own career. And I would feel that same way of any player that makes a decision like that. Football is a team sport. You're in it through thick and thin. But what I found interesting was in this interview, he was asked about, the culture at Nebraska, the culture with the football program. And I know, culture is this word that I think most Nebraska football fans are sick and tired of hearing it. And, I was listening to this talk show and they were debating, well, what's the definition of culture and are there different kinds of culture? And, I guess what I wanted to say, and you guys can chew this and spit it out if you'd like, but, Scott Frost has talked about, getting the right kind of players in that do the right thing. And I think that he's never gone any further than that. And so that allows people to to define the right thing, for themselves. What does that look like? And, depending upon how old you are, what your experiences are, those definitions may in fact be different. When you start talking about culture, was Brendan Hymas talking about, the culture hasn't improved, maybe it's regressed. Is that because the definition of culture that's being used is a culture of winning? Well, certainly the team isn't winning. So is that Scott Frost's definition? Well, it can't be. There's got to be more to it. And so I guess what, when I think about culture and what is he striving for? What does he want? I got to believe, and it goes back to some of the things that I've mentioned throughout the course of the last few years since, well, more than that, since Bo Pelini's been the coach, is that the Nebraska football that I remember, the culture of Nebraska football that I remember was hard-nosed, disciplined football, where Nebraska never had as many penalties as the opposing team. They didn't make the kind of mistakes that we see, almost continuously out on the field anymore, and we've seen it for years. And so, when I think what's the culture that Nebraska is striving for, I would hope that the culture includes players that are going to commit to work hard, that are going to commit to be the best possible teammate that they can be, and that they are going to commit to playing football in a disciplined manner. That's the kind of culture that I hope Scott Frost is striving for. Now, if Brendan Hymas is working from the same definition as I am, then it worries me if that's not the kind of player. How far away is Nebraska from being able to establish that kind of culture? So, do we want players with character? Do we want young men with character? Yes, I think we do. I think everybody wants kids with character. But I want kids that commit to their team, that are determined to play the game in a hard-nosed fashion, and they don't make mistakes. They're disciplined on the field and off. So I guess that's what I think the culture ought to be.
Nate, do you care to chime in?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, though that's a good start.
Hey, the question of culture. I don't know. See, that's one of those things I'd like to be a fly on the wall of the program, because you hear people say, oh, it's a bad culture. Now, my question is it just bad on the offensive side? Because on the defensive side, it seems like everyone's coming back. They're being very successful. I think defense is going to take a step forward even more next year. And so we keep on hearing about the bad culture. It's on the offensive side of the ball. And so, I don't know what Scott Frost can do to create a better culture on the offensive side of the ball without simply improving the offense. And I think he's trying to take steps in that direction. I think he's going with a downhill running game. He's gone from recruiting these short receivers and small running backs. I think he's adjusting to the Big Ten. And so when Hymas, when he starts talking about how because he mentioned in that quote that him and I think he said Adrian and Matt Farniok tried to get everyone together and do workouts and all that stuff, and just people wouldn't do it. Well, I mean, is it just the offensive side of the ball? I mean, so it's like, I don't know. But I also think that you can do whatever you want to create a great culture, but when you're losing, no matter what you're doing, it looks stupid. Because whatever you're doing, obviously, is not creating wins. So then, whatever you're doing, as far as the culture-wise, is the wrong thing. So I don't know. It's the culture thing to me. The conversation bothers me. No, not that we're having it. The conversation itself bothers me a little bit because it's extremely subjective to each and every player. So when you have one or a couple players come out and they make comments about the culture of the program, I mean, it's from their point of view. It's very subjective. And then you have like Cam Taylor-Britt makes comments about how he thinks the culture is doing great. I mean, so who's wrong? I mean, one of them's wrong, right? So that's what bothers me about the whole thing. To me, it's like, if I'm not getting a lot of playing time and things aren't going my way, culture's a pretty vague and pretty, something that I can point to and say, oh, it's not my fault. It's the culture's fault.
I don't have anything. Other than, I guess I was listening intently to Nate and enthralled with his wisdom so much that I didn't come up with anything other than, I guess the one good thing about Brendan Hymas leaving one game early is we got to see Turner Corcoran beat the shit out of Rutgers on the left side of the line. I was like, okay, maybe it was just the opponent, but I'm for that. Future looks good to me, man. I hope Hymas, I hope he gets picked up by an NFL team and has a good career.
And I wonder if, kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, Nate, if the player's perception of culture, it has to be affected by their expectations, and what are the coaches feeding them to get them, to go. Now, I mean, not just to Nebraska, but to any school, anywhere you look, and you could probably type in any Power 5 program, Michigan culture, Washington culture, Notre Dame culture, Alabama culture, and find something related to. So it has to. I think culture has to begin on the recruit with, I don't know, maybe realistic expectations.
Is that a question?
Greg, I agree with what you're saying, but I also think, that your coaches are the ones that are going to establish the expectations, and that needs to be internalized by your leaders on the team. And throughout the football season, we had numerous debates and conversations on the blog about who are the leaders, and a leaderless team, quite a bit. But in terms of establishing a culture, Nate, he's a high school basketball coach. From one year to the next, your culture can change. There's so many different dynamics in play that contribute to a culture. I've bore witness a number of times to, when a coaching change happens, and I've been a principal and AD in schools where, a so-so program, all of a sudden with a change with a head coach and the way that he works with players and the fact that he builds trust among them, the fact that he builds commitment among them, that makes a world of difference in the program. And, I look at where Nebraska's at. Do the players trust one another? Do the players go out there at the beginning of each game confident that they can compete? Where are their heads at? And I'm going to disagree with Nate on a point. He talked about the culture of the defense compared to the culture of the offense. Hell, you got to have a culture with the whole team. I mean, everybody's got to be pulling the rope in the same direction. Is there divisiveness on the team? Is the defense out there saying, son of a bitches, we're working our asses off here. We're doing everything we can to keep these offenses down. You guys got to produce. Is that kind of division? Does that exist in that program? And if it does, that's a cancer, and that's got to be fixed. So I don't know. I hope, and I think it was said on a previous podcast, Scott Frost has an opportunity to do a lot of reflection. That's what the offseason's all about. He's brought in 3 new analysts. He's not going to make any changes on his coaching staff. What can we expect that Scott Frost is going to do so that he establishes the kind of attitude in the football team that needs to be there to be successful? What's he going to do to make that happen? And I guess we'll see not too long because spring's just around the corner.
There was a thought that I had when I look at talking about culture and leadership. It's a lot easier to define those leaders when you're having success, but you still have to. And I feel like maybe I'm not making excuses. I think one of the hindrances is that really none of the people who are on the roster right now know success. That we're, how many losing seasons deep are we? We're from Riley's, fluky second year, I think, and then it's been, downhill ever since. But at some point there has to be accountability, and you're going to have some upperclassmen, or maybe, I thought maybe Wandale was going to, have that lead as an underclassman, but you got to have somebody step up and, get into some faces, I think if I can disagree with you a little bit, Todd, I don't think that the calling out the offense is a cancer. I think it's a wake up call, and if the defense is out there and they're getting stop after stop, and then the offense is out there, throwing a swing pass on the first play of the game, and next thing you know, it's a fumble, it's picked up, and either gone the other way or first and goal from the 9 for the opposition. Well, the defense at some point, there has to be some look across the way at the guy across from you and say, get it together, figure this out, but that also has to happen at the coaching level where. I don't want to rehash, but you got to grab somebody by the damn lapels and shake some sense into them and say, quit calling the same pass, first game out. But when Dedrick Mills gets you down inside the 5, give him the football, and hopefully Wandale doesn't get killed, going into the end zone. There has to be Scott Frost is supposed to be the grand overseer. And I feel that he's been, focusing a little too much on one side. So hopefully something happens in the offseason where there's at least a reallocation of coaching duties to where, we can get the big picture and get everybody on the same page. But I don't mind the defense, jumping the offense's ass from time to time and saying, you have to help us. You're putting us in bad spots, and we're out here, we're losing it's a very one-sided time of possession game, and you have to play better, play smarter, make better decisions with the football so that we're not backed up every time and spending 10 minutes of the period or of the quarter out on the field. Just a thought.
Yeah, it comes down to accountability for your teammates, accountability for everybody on that team. And until that's, a foundation of the program, there's going to be struggles. That's my opinion. So anyway,
And I think, going back to I didn't mean to cut you off, Todd, but going back to that, week before that Rutgers game when we found out that Hymas wasn't going to play, I think that's what chapped my ass the most because, look, I hope he has. I guess I hope he has success at the NFL. I don't know, depending on what team he ends up with. May he have a career that affords him some of the finer things in life, and more power to him. But he walked away from his teammates, and I cannot abide that. That's just me. I know we say that, everybody's got to do what's best for them or what they feel is best for them in the situation, but it was one game your senior year and you couldn't stick it out against fucking Rutgers? Come on,
it is kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't anything to play for, but at the same time,
Yeah.
If the first game of the season and the last game of the season were switched and Rutgers was your first game and you were finishing up against Ohio State, you're like, you know what? I don't want to, but it's Rutgers. I'm not even going to apologize to all of our viewers and listeners out in Piscataway. I don't care. You're Rutgers.
We just beat them by 6 points? 6 or 7 points? Say it's
I don't care.
Rutgers. But we barely beat them. It's like I don't think we can say that anymore. I don't know. It's like
we can.
No.
We physically beat the shit out of them, and if it wasn't for 4 turnovers in the first half, we'd have just stomped the living crap out of them. So they're still Rutgers.
We were
fucker. Don't make me
we were as bad as we were, playing as bad as we could, and we still beat them by 6 points. They are Rutgers.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, since we have Nate here, I want to ask him a question. Nate, you're the high school basketball guru, and I don't pay any attention, but I see that there's this big old kid out at Grand Island that's a 4-star player. Is he a guy that fits into Hoiberg's kind of program? Is Nebraska recruiting that kid, or is he what's the situation with him?
That's a good question. I read an article on it today, and he's getting recruited by Gonzaga, Kansas, Michigan State. I mean, I didn't see him mention Nebraska in that article. His last name's Trout. I think it's Traudt.
Yeah, Isaac
Grand
Trout.
Island. Yeah, so
how tall
it's kind of
is
funny
he?
that isn't he 6'10"?
He's a big kid. He's
Yeah,
big.
and I think he can shoot. So that would fit if I'm right on that. Then he fits perfectly into what Hoiberg wants to do. Kind of funny thing though is that the coach that I used to coach with, who used to be here, he's now at I'm sorry. Trout just scored 57 against him, and earlier this week, and I'm blanking on it. Sorry, buddy, Shelsta. Anyways, he is probably a guy where I would be surprised if we got him. I mean, if you have Gonzaga and you have Kansas, Michigan State, and then you look at Nebraska, who's lost 25 conference games in a row, where do I want to go? I don't know, So
You want to go on the team with the 2 McGowan brothers that are going to draw 400 fouls a game and win every fucking game they play in.
The 5-star McGowan is going to be gone before Trout can get here, so that really doesn't help. Because he's a junior.
6'9", I want to read the list of teams he currently has an offer from. Or how about teams he doesn't have an offer from? Start there. Yeah, it's fine. It's the end of the show. We got time. Teams that he's cool. This is all from 247 Sports. No offer from Virginia, North Carolina, Michigan State, Illinois, Gonzaga, or Duke. Yes, offers from Wyoming, Wisconsin, Virginia Tech. No, I already mention Virginia? All right, Virginia's in here twice. That's cool. Apparently, he maybe has an offer from, Stanford, South Dakota, Purdue, Oregon, Ole Miss, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Colorado, Nebraska, Omaha, Nebraska, Missouri, Minnesota, Marquette, Louisville, Kansas State, Kansas, Iowa State, Idaho, Georgetown, Drake, and Creighton. If he ends up at Creighton, I'm going to be mad.
Motherfuckers.
I'm a Creighton alum. Thank you very much. And I agree.
Yeah, somehow we overlook that just because I'm a forgetful son of a bitch and forgiving. You don't have to bring
Creighton
it up.
is the Iowa.
I'm just cutting you off right fucking now.
Did you guys talk about Nebraska basketball at all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
okay.
We would,
you know what? Since you, Mr. Basketball fucking expert guy.
I'm not an expert, but good.
Oh, you are too. Banton, McGowan, Walker, Allen, and Maine.
What?
Banton, McGowan, Walker, Allen, and Mayen. That's our starters.
Yep.
Would you keep that starting lineup in the game for how long?
I would kick Teddy Allen off the team.
Okay, I know that you don't like Teddy Allen, but in terms of talent, in terms of scoring.
Okay. I mean, I think Ben, I think, is going to be a stud. McGowan is one of my favorite players on the team this year. Because he actually looks like he wants to play hard. He's a slasher. He's physical. Walker, I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him yet. The other post who just started playing again, I'm blanking on his name. He had like 4 fouls yesterday.
Drago?
No. No, by the way, if he doesn't grow,
Andre.
Andre. What's his last name?
Eduardo Andre. Andre is his last name.
Okay, yeah. So he's the one that I think he could be really good for us. Sorry, Yvonne, the guy from France. If he doesn't grow, he's not a Big Ten basketball player. And
no,
I don't. He like during the broadcast of the game. What's his name? From he was Michigan. Boeheim. Michigan's old
John Beilein.
Beilein, yeah. He's like, yeah, or he's like, yeah, he has trouble finishing around the hoop. Oh, thank goodness our post player at a Power 5 Big Ten basketball school has trouble finishing around the hoop. And he shoots like 40% from the free throw line. I mean, what are we doing here? Oh.
He's playing minutes.
There's so much promise with Nebraska basketball. And it's just like, I don't know. It's frustrating to watch. But that doesn't mean I don't believe in what Hoiberg's doing, because I do. Because we are a much more talented, we are much better than we were last year, but we're going to have less wins to show for it. And that's
okay, if you're going to pull Teddy Allen out of the lineup, I just said, who are you going to put in there?
Shamil Stevenson, big fan. He's kind of out of control at times. But, I mean,
the guy has to learn how to fucking assist. He gets dribbling the ball toward the basket and suddenly believes he's a fullback.
And Teddy Allen catches the ball. All of a sudden, the ball sticks. The ball stops moving. Everyone stands there. He goes and does his thing. But guess what? He gets that 15 shots a game or whatever, and he makes 6 or 7. But some of them are pretty awesome. And he's leading the team in scoring. So he's obviously really good for the program, right? So he doesn't play. All of a sudden, the ball starts moving, and obviously, we got to be able to hit shots. But I'm not hating on the kid. I just with Hoiberg, the ball needs to move, and when Teddy Allen gets the ball, it doesn't move. So that's what I say.
Andy needs to grow up. Actually, you know what? Actually, very bluntly, he needs to grow the fuck up.
Yeah, I don't know what he did, but did anyone ever find out what he did? Not that
I don't know, but his play on the court sometimes you can tell he just, honestly, I'll say this about him. He kind of reminds me of me. I have always had and have never gotten over, even though I'm fucking old, a problem with authority. And a problem with people telling me what to do, and and listening to people when I should. And I'm willing to admit that. And Todd's sitting there shaking his head. You could have done something other than shaking your head. Yes, you fuck. But I recognize that about myself, and it has cost me in some situations throughout my life and in my career. On the other hand, being a mouthy son of a bitch has probably done me more good than not. But you need to recognize when it's time to back off, buddy, and time to calm down and time to, you got goals. And if you're blowing stuff up, you're not meeting your goals. And I do agree with you. The ball doesn't move. He does that hero ball bullshit.
Yeah, it's like
he is frustrating.
But okay, so to defend him, even though I just said I think he's bad for the program, and that's probably too much because he is a kid, he's a college kid. But when Nebraska basketball goes, 10 minutes without making a bucket, or whatever, that's what he can do for you. He at least can go get you a bucket or two. But unfortunately, sometimes he takes away more than he gives. And so, it's kind of like maybe Hoiberg just thinks we don't have good enough shooters yet. And so, Teddy, we need you to go get us 12, 14 points a game type of deal. I don't know. So, but I always say this because as a coach, Hoiberg knows what he's doing. So when I say that Teddy Allen's bad for the program, Hoiberg obviously disagrees. And so, but I still have what I can watch. I think that the ball moves better when he's not on the floor.
Well, Fred had to deal with them NBA players, so I imagine he's dealt with, prima donna egos that don't have to listen to him at all ever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Are we done, Greg, or we got anything else?
I was just in the middle of wrap the show.
You're cutting out, Greg.
Greg, stop and rewind. Huh? What, Nate?
You were cutting out. That's all. Sorry.
That's
my feed.
I have tip-top internet connection. That'll do it for this episode of the Five Heart Podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this show. If you did, leave a comment. Let us know what you agreed with, what you didn't agree with. Those comments are even more fun. I tell you from time to time, I need to tell you more often, and you need to do it. Use your voice. Call or text the show, 402-327-1830. Someday I'll have that nicely printed and, a nice graphic to display, but instead it's in my own hand. Call or text the show.
Production values have gone to shit during this pandemic.
Well, we have a budget of $0, so that's what we have to work with. So we appreciate everybody tuning in, watching or listening on your favorite podcast. Watching, of course, on YouTube. For Nate McHugh, Todd Wolverton, and our founder and fearless leader, John Grumpy-Ass Johnston, I'm Greg Mahako, reminding you this week and every week that Five Heart is all the heart you need. John?
Go Big Red. Hey, Nate, I'm growing breasts.
Growing breasts?
Yeah. I got my second COVID shot. I can already feel them perking up.